Hello, once again, and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez, and you are listening to, believe it or not, episode 604. Almost 2 years after the last episode went up. I get into it. I get into what's been going on. I get into a bunch of different things. I ramble for the most part, so just be prepared for that. I'll tell you that flat out up front. But this was not originally going to be aired, as far as I was concerned. This was just me testing out the equipment and see what I wanted to do, and I kind of fell back into it a little bit. So we'll leave it there and let the episode speak for itself, and we'll see what happens. Thank you for listening. I'm going to put up all the different links right now, and I mentioned them at the end as well. You can follow us on the Facebook fan page over facebook.com/Rabblecast, I believe. I have to double check that one. Send us a tweet at Rabblecast. Email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. You can always find the show over at Rabblecast. Excuse me, rabblecast.libsyn.com. And we're also on YouTube, youtube.com/Rabblecast. And I'll post up the link. I'll post up the shows, and we'll see what happens. But otherwise, it was nice to sit down. I don't know if my voice held out throughout the entire episode. I need to get a drink of water. But yeah, it's been a while. I missed you guys. I hope you missed us, or me in particular. And let's get into it. All right, folks, settle in, and I don't know. I'm out of practice. I haven't done this in close to 2 years. That's not true. I've done a couple attempts here and there, but nothing that stuck, and nothing that really resonated with me, because I just wasn't sure what to do. So, if you're new to the show, welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez. It's just me by myself, no co-host, no other person in the room. I'm just firing up the gear, trying to see what's going on. I recently got the bug to really get back into this, mostly because I watched WrestleMania in the beginning of April, and just sitting down, being able to go back to social media and tweet about it, and talk to a bunch of different people and get their take on it. It was fun to have that back and forth again. And it really, really it really got me to the point where I wanted to get back on the microphone and record an episode and just see what people thought about it. Now, I realized that was the beginning of April. By the time this comes out, it's already the beginning of May. And again, let me catch you up a little bit. So back in 2001, I mean, pandemic aside, that threw a monkey wrench into things, obviously. But really what it came down to was finding time between work, family, and everything in between. It just became harder and harder to find some alone time, some quiet time where I could get away. The house at this point has been taken up by kids overall. Like, there's no really escape as far as that's concerned. So being able to sit down and being able to put the gear on, set up the recording session and everything else, I'm not used to doing it in the home. It's been a while since I've done regular episodes in the house. So I wanted to be able to find a time and a place where I could really, really do this. So here I am sitting in my living room, which was one of the studios at one point, where Mike and I would sit down, and then eventually Doug would join me, and then various different guests would literally come into my living room, sit down on the couches, and we just all have fun. It was a work in progress, learning as you go. Even this one, I got to listen back to see what it's going to sound like. To be honest, if you're listening to this, congratulations. That means I actually thought it might be okay to release. You can tell me in any of the feedback, but I'm not entirely sure what I want to do at this point, because being a father has taken up so much time, but I still watch movies and TV and read stuff online. So I wanted to talk about a bunch of different things. And I just feel like this is an outlet that actually helps, just helps keep me sane, I guess, in some regard. Helps me get some of the energy out that I get excited for. Just to give you a quick idea as far as what I might be talking about. Way back when, I used to watch Monday Night Raw by myself because at the time I couldn't go over to friends' houses. I was young. I was a child. I was in high school. Just stay up late watching Raw or watch the replay of Nitro afterwards on TNT. I remember the night that Shawn Michaels came back to WWE television. You can probably hear the train in the background. Again, living room. I remember when Shawn Michaels came back to Raw, and they teased the possibility of the return of DX back then. DX had not been seen on TV for the longest time. It slowly faded away, especially after Triple H and Stephanie had gotten married. It was a completely different era, let's put it that way. And the night that Shawn Michaels came back, and they teased it, you were all excited. I'm jumping up and down in my parents' bedroom, on their bed, because I'm so excited that DX is back. And all of a sudden, as they're celebrating whatever match was, I don't remember who they went against, but as they're celebrating, Shawn has his back to Triple H, and as soon as he turns to face him, Triple H kicks him in the gut, gives him a pedigree, and boom, all the wishes of DX have come and gone just as fast as that. And I remember the excitement, the energy that I felt. I was like, oh my God, who do I call? Who do I tell? This is amazing. I can't believe this is happening. And then boom, it goes away just as quickly as they gave it to you. They teased it. This is way back before the big return. And I remember that. I remember the air being sucked out of the room. I remember the deflation of my energy at that point, where I was just like, oh, what the fuck? And I was so upset to the point where I actually sent WWE a complaint through email. And they actually responded. I'll give them credit. They were actually trying to take some feedback. And I can't remember the back and forth, but I tried saying, I have other opinions if you want to hear them. It didn't go past that first email. But they actually reached out. I explained to them I was so upset that I was hoping that this team was coming back. And they actually, I don't know if they did anything with it, but eventually DX did come back on air. So it struck a chord with some of the fans at the very least. I don't know how much, but it played into something. But what I'm trying to say is that same energy, that same excitement that you feel when you watch something and you don't know who to call. I mean, granted, nowadays we have cell phones in our pockets. We can call whoever we want. We can FaceTime somebody. We can send a text. Even social media, just throw it out there in the ether and let the group, the collective mind of social media, whoever follows you, whoever might see it, respond in some fashion or some way. But it's not the same for me in a weird way. I don't know. Maybe I'm an attention whore in that respect, where I feel like if by recording this and sitting down, I can share my thoughts and my ideas. And if you guys excuse me, it's been a while, like I said. And if you guys you can always shoot back a message on social media. You can shoot me back an email. You can tweet at me, whatever the case is. I just figured, what the hell? Let me give this a shot. It's been quite some time. I just miss doing the podcast. I'm hoping that I can do a bunch of different things. I know I've said in the past, I have different plans and different ideas, and a lot of that stuff just didn't come to pass because I got busy with family. Very simple. And, work. I was one of the very fortunate ones that I was able to work through the pandemic, for better or worse, depending on how you look at it. But I didn't have to go through a dry spell where I was wondering where my next paycheck was coming from, or I didn't have to worry about where things were going. I guess you can say, in a way, it was almost a sense of complacency. Because I remember sitting down and I did record, oh gosh, what was it? I think it was last year. I did sit down to record an anniversary episode for the podcast. I figured I'd do a little celebration thing. I screwed up a bunch of things as far as dates and everything else. I didn't know what I was really trying to accomplish. And by the end of the episode, I did the playback. I listened to it. I let a couple days pass. I listened to it again, and I just essentially I shelved it. I had no confidence in the episode whatsoever. It will never be released. I will guarantee you that. There are just some things that you do, and you know it's not good. You know it's not. It doesn't have your full heart, your full energy. Now I'm hoping that doesn't happen with this one. I'm hoping that I can get through everything and talk about different things, because when I watched WrestleMania, like I said, I was excited. That energy, especially now that it's a 2-night event, it's whether you love it or hate it. I feel that they were able to spread it out. Now, granted, booking aside, you can talk about WWE and how they book things and who should be getting what spots, whatever the case was. I love the fact that they gave the first night was a really like balls out kind of night. And then second night was kind of like more of the standard WWE fare as far as storytelling and booking, whatever the case was. My personal favorites of that weekend, and again, I know this is like a month away already, were the matches of Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley, which was a knockdown drag-out fight. Was it the cleanest match in the world? Absolutely not. There were a few missteps here and there. They did very well with the match itself, and it left me wanting more. And then on the other end was Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio, father and son. Not only did the match make me feel old as shit, because let's face it, I remember the storyline back when Dominic was a little boy and Eddie Guerrero was claiming that he was his real father, and that whole shtick. I remember that storyline from back then. I remember Ray and Eddie back from Halloween Havoc, watching it on pay-per-view. And then years later, here we are watching father and son, Dominic and Ray, go at it in the ring. And it was a great match. Was it the best in the world? No. Was it fun? Yes. It told a story. And for me, who had been watching the product for so long back then, I was emotionally invested in seeing these two go at it. So in that respect, I think they did a great job. And they really got my attention. The run-ins and different shenanigans, ringside, whatever the case is, that you gotta deal with that sometimes, especially in the world of professional wrestling. But they did a good job telling that story regardless. They still gave you the full story in itself in the match. And then all the nonsense that happened ringside near the end, that's just, I guess you can call it icing on the cake in a certain respect, but it didn't detract in any way from the match for me, at the very least. So, but again, like that, those 2 nights of watching wrestling, I was so excited. I wanted to sit down, I wanted to talk, I wanted to see what was going on. Actually, I think about a week or 2 ago, I actually called Doug, and we sat down and I shouldn't say sat down. He was probably walking outside. I was sitting down in my home, but we spoke about a bunch of different things, and we talked about Mania and going back and forth. And I highly recommended for him to watch those 2 matches in particular. But it was just fun because it was that excitement, that energy where we're having that back and forth, and it was fun being able to converse with friends back and forth and having that how do I put this? I guess the best way you can put it, that known language, that lingo back and forth, because we knew what we were saying to one another. We understood each other very well. We're on the same level in that respect. And it was just fun to have that again. Doug, as if you've listened to the show in the past, Doug has gone on to take care of a bunch of different things in his life. And, it was understandable. It was never a question of whether he was going to or wasn't he. He had to take care of things, so he did what he had to do. Now, I've said this before in the past. I've spoken to a couple of different friends who've all accepted the opportunity to come on this show and help me out whenever they can. I'm not going to hold them to it as far as like a weekly thing. If they can, great. If they can't, it's probably just going to be me again, just doing different things. Here I go again on my own. That old chestnut. But I'm trying to find a way where I can do this. One, where I don't feel old as shit. Because I've been doing this for quite some time, at the very least. We started this show way, way back when. If you're a fan of the show, what was it? Oh, God, I can't remember the anniversary date. The anniversary date's actually coming up in May, which is funny enough. So, but, what? Oh, God. I can't even remember the date. I'll look it up. I'll find it out later on. But the show had been going on for so long. We're now over 600 episodes that have been released. And I just don't want to walk away from it in that respect. You figure like I invested this much time into something like this, that I would be able to continue with it and find a way where it would actually be beneficial, not just to you, the listeners, but hopefully to me, as far as like finding out more information, talking to more people, and just doing more research and finding out things that interest me. Because honestly, again, I was able to work through the pandemic, but sometimes you think you do things because it's the right thing to do. And yeah, in certain respects it might be, but then you're stuck in a job where you're wondering, why the fuck did I just put this time into this? And it's not to, disparage my current employer at all whatsoever. It just comes down to is like, did I make the right choice? Did I make the right moves to be where I'm currently at? Because I feel like I'm not where I should be in that respect. Sometimes you feel like you get up in the morning, you go to work. I used to ask this question all the time of coworkers. What gets you up in the morning? What motivates you to get out of bed and do it again, a day after day after day? Some would say money. Some would say family. Some would say, I like my job. And that's great. I mean, everybody has their own thing. But for the longest time, I was not able to answer that question without some heavy thinking as far as like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? It's one thing to say like, I have to earn a paycheck. I have to pay bills. I have to, put food on the table. That's fine. I guess those are necessities, and you'll find a way to get those done one way or the other. But why was I doing it over and over again? And yeah, don't get me wrong. I work in the electronics field, assembly, production, different things like that. And it's fun when it's fun. But more and more, I guess I feel like it's become more of a job, and because of that, it's become a routine and a chore, and it's not as enjoyable as I thought it could be at one point. So I'm trying to figure out how I can make that one more exciting for myself again. Trying to find the joy of it. One of my friends told me recently, there's no reason to be negative about certain things. I've always wanted to try to figure out how to make something fun and exciting rather than just sit there and drone on about, oh my God, it sucks so badly. Oh, I don't want to be here. Yeah, okay, anybody can do that. But how do you make it work for you? And I guess that's really what I'm trying to do overall. Family life is fun. We've had a few ups and downs this past year in the homestead. Medical stuff, unfortunately, has popped up here and there. But look, we're getting old. That's, it's expected to a certain extent. But thankfully, the kids have been making life very exciting. The experiences, going out to different places, seeing new things, experiencing new things with them, and just being able to share, our life experiences with them and see them and how they interpret them and how they take it in on themselves. One of my kids has, out of nowhere, taken to a liking to Transformers, which, as a father, I can't help but be proud, because growing up, for whatever reason, robots, mechas, all that kind of stuff, I took an early liking to growing up in the 80s, and I'm really excited to see that my youngest has done the same. My oldest has gotten into dinosaurs recently, so we're going through the rabbit hole of Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, and all the stuff in between. We even took him to a Jurassic Park live tour show out in Newark at the Prudential Center, and he was able to see like life-size, or I guess like, big animatronics and big puppets, and it took him a little bit to get used to it, because there were some parts that were really loud and really noisy, and he wasn't expecting them, and it caught him off guard a little bit. But it's nice to see that we can take him out and he can have fun, and he overcame certain certain fears in a certain respect, because at one point he goes, I don't want to be here. And I'm thinking to myself, I paid good money for these tickets. You're going to be here. We're not leaving just because you're terrified. And I was like, not even like halfway through the show. But he made it through. He enjoyed it. He had fun. And then at the end of it, he had his souvenir pictures and his souvenir plushie and all this other stuff. So he was able to overcome whatever was getting him frightened, and enjoy the show overall, to the point where he was even sharing the videos that we shot for him, sharing the different memorabilia that he walked away with. So in that respect, it was really nice to see him be able to enjoy it in that regard. But seeing them grow up right now, if you think about it, when I started this podcast along with Jamie back in the day, I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. Surely, slowly but surely, life goes on and you find who you want to settle down with. And Jennifer and I sat down and, we talked about family and everything else. We eventually decided what we wanted to do. And fast forward to current day, I mean, here I am trying to do this again. She's laying down with our one child and the other kids in his room. And it's weird where life finds you sometimes, where if you don't stop and look around, you're like, holy shit, time really does go by. We look at my oldest now, and he just turned 7 years old, and he's tall, he's big, he's what you would expect, I guess, from somebody of our genetic makeup. But I was just like, man, it's crazy how quickly it all happens. And if you don't stop and just appreciate what it is, if you don't, some people say, put the camera away, put the phone away, because you just live in the moment. Yeah, okay, I ascribe to that as well. But sometimes, a photo or a picture, just to commemorate the moment. There's a bunch of them that my wife has been able to take, and they look fantastic. And I'm so happy that we have some of these moments that normally I would say, I don't want a picture taken, or no, I don't want to deal with this. It's nice to be able to have those. And I don't know if Android phones do this, but I have an iPhone, and one of the features that it does every now and then, I think like every month or every quarter, it'll take a collection of pictures. So it does like facial recognition. So it recognized my youngest, my oldest, my wife, myself, my whatever other family is in my photo reel, and we'll put up like a photo book with some generic music, royalty free. And it'll give you like a quick, like a minute or two picture book set to music. And you're like, all right, I remember those moments. Those are great. When my son first came home, when we first took him to the park, or when my youngest, everything else. It's fun to see those. You're like, all right, I guess I can chalk that up to motivation for myself in a sense, because if I wasn't doing it for myself, doing it for them, it makes things worth it in certain regards. So, on a different note, after doing the whole social media shout outs and talking about with different things, shout out to Eric Major, an old listener of the show, who was very excited that we were doing, or at least I was doing tweets during WrestleMania. He and I went back and forth, and it was fun just to goof around again online. And after doing all the tweets, and after, talking about the show and posting the different links, because the night after WrestleMania, WWE sold to Endeavor Group, the same group that owns the UFC. So now it's under one big umbrella. So Dana White runs the UFC. Vince McMahon somehow is back in the seat of power for the WWE. And we're going to see what turns out from there. To be honest, I've not been following it as closely after WrestleMania. It was just like a one shot for me. Well, one shot, 2 nights. But being able to listen to all the different news stories that were coming out saying, oh, they're going to combine the UFC and the WWE, and now they're going to have these guys crossing over for belts. And this, no, they're not doing anything of that nature. I mean, even for me, who has not been watching for quite some time, I knew what they were going for. Endeavor Group decided that they wanted to purchase another big company. A little bit different from the UFC in this regard, because the UFC, where you have mixed martial artists competing in actual events for championships and big money, whereas opposed to the WWE, sorry to say guys, is a scripted and performed event of athleticism and acrobatics for some of these performance feats of strength, where they go off to show what they can do in the ring within the confines of the squared circle, telling a story. That's a different animal altogether from the UFC. So the fact that Endeavor Group now owns these 2 big behemoths, great for them. That's a lot of money that's going to be generated in both arenas. So I really hope that WWE, whether it's Vince McMahon or Triple H, they can figure out what they need to do and make it work. But after WrestleMania, I really didn't keep up with all the different news. So I might have to check in and see what happens. I mean, you guys let me know if you want me to check in and do some kind of like reports, move that be like weekly or monthly. There was a point in time where I was doing weekly wrestling news, and it burned me the fuck out, because I was on different dirt sheet sites trying to find little tidbits, little news stories, developments, all these different things just to report on. And don't get me wrong, it was fun because I enjoyed it for what it was at the time. But doing it week in, week out, and after a while, it just wore on me. I can't remember how many years I was doing that for. And that's why shortly after Jen and I got married, I made the decision to kind of like shift a little bit away from wrestling news and just do, pop culture in general. Everybody's out there talking about it, but I figured, what the hell, let me give my take on it and see what happens. But after WrestleMania, after all the different tweets and links and posting, I had an old friend from high school, reach out to me and asked about the podcast and said, I would really love to listen to an old friend talk about wrestling. And I'm paraphrasing the message, but it was a really sweet, out of the blue, hey, how's it going? Is your show around? How do I find it? Because she actually tried looking for it, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. Took me a second, but I just threw her the YouTube link for it, not really thinking about the fact that, I'm still paying for the libsyn.com subscription for the show so that it can stay active and people can find it. So if you're listening right now, share it. Rabblecast.libsyn.com is where the show is posted. From there, it goes out to YouTube, or when I post it on Facebook or Twitter, if they allow me these days. We have to double check and see how that works. But yeah, it was really sweet. I mean, I had not heard from her in God knows how long at this point, and it reminded me that a lot of people kept asking, oh, how's the show doing? You going back to do the show? We always love having it for car rides. We always love having it at work, or whatever the case was. And I guess I took for granted for the fact that for as small of an audience that we did have, I never really tracked the audience. I know we got, a modest following, but I never really understood, I guess, what it really meant to some people as far as listening to this week in, week out. I mean, I should understand. I consume podcasts on a weekly basis myself. I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. Started all the way from number one when he was doing was it like Justin TV or from his living room himself, all the way to current day. Whenever an episode comes out, I usually download it, queue it up, and listen to it. I used to listen to Nerdist podcast back in the day, the Pete Holmes, You Made It Weird, How Did This Get Made, Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, and June and Raphael. I'm trying to think what else. Kevin Smith, obviously, I would listen to just about any podcast he puts out, but more recently, I've been listening to his Fat Man Beyond and Hollywood Babylon with Mark Bernardin and Ralph Garman, respectively. So I understand what a weekly show, or in some cases a monthly show, can mean to somebody when they sit there going, oh, I wonder what they have to say about this, or whatever news pieces talked about on this episode. I get it. It took for some friends to actually come out and say, hey, what happened to the show? Or, hey, are you doing this again? Or when are you going to release another episode? That, it made me realize that even just sitting down and being able to let my voice go through the internet and reach some of you, that maybe that's just enough. You tell me. Again, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I will get back to covering different topics and different shows and different things, and we'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. This is just, again, me firing everything up and seeing it, make sure that everything works. I see the red lights are on. I hear my own voice in my cans, which are on loan from Jen. Thank you, sweetie. And just trying to figure out, can I still do this? I will hope to do this on a weekly basis, because I feel like if I don't, then I'll just fall out of it again. But if I can figure out how to make this work again, how to find that spark that made it really exciting. To be honest, the part that really made this exciting for me was being able to talk to other friends and being able to see what they had to say, bouncing off their ideas, making silly jokes back and forth, and having fun. That was the main thrust of it for me, was that camaraderie that we had. We used to refer to it as our weekly therapy sessions, especially with Doug and I. We would do the main show that you would listen to, and then the off-air stuff that we would talk about in the backyard at his place. was always fun because we just sit there and just shoot the shit for a while. Just talk about usual stuff, personal stuff, recap some stuff that we might have talked about on air, and just elaborate it a little bit more just for ourselves. Nothing crazy, but probably some stuff that we could say on air, but we didn't. We just, the personal side of things, when the microphones are not on. So, but I really have to thank any and all of you that have reached out, whether it be email, social media, phone calls, texts. The fact that anybody cared whether this show went up or not, I found amazing. It was always great. It always makes me laugh when people are like, "Oh, are you still doing that show?" I'm like, obviously not listening to it. If you're asking me if I'm still doing it, but there's other people that genuinely cared, and it's like, I used to love listening to it when I would drive to work in the morning, or when I would take my kids out for a car ride, or I'm just stuck in the office all day, and I just need something to take my mind off of things. I get it. I do the same thing. All these different voices that I listen to through podcasts. I've also started listening to more audiobooks now. That's just to, I guess, catch up on some old books that I should have read growing up that I never really did. But I figure, what the hell? Let me try listening to them on my phone and during work and see if I can enjoy them that way. I remember which one? Back during the Halloween season in October of last year, I listened to Bram Stoker's Dracula for the first time. The book itself, not the dramatization or a retelling of the movie, the book itself. And then I watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, the movie, that came out many years ago. And I saw the differences from the book to the film, and things that they included, things that they excluded, things that were made up just for the movie itself, things that changed here and there. And I was genuinely appreciative of the literature that inspired the movie in that respect. So I'm going to see if I can find a couple other books that I can listen to, just to catch up on different things. And then of course there's, again, geek stuff. I've been dying to get into the world of voice acting. I've taken some voice acting coaching sessions online. I've talked to a bunch of different people. I'm trying to figure out how to set up a recording method here in my place where I could do, professional grade recording, because not only would it help this in terms of the show, but it would also be some side income in a certain respect. But I've been listening to different voice acting books. If you had not had the chance, Rob Paulsen, who is more or less known as the mayor of Toontown, very famous for doing Yakko from the Animaniacs, Pinky of Pinky and the Brain, Raphael from the 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the animated version of The Mask, Jimmy Neutron. He did, what was the name of the little nerdy kid? Not Jimmy Neutron himself, but Ralph Weezer. I can go on as far as all his different credits, but Rob Paulsen is a very legendary voice actor. Back in 2019, he put out a book called Voice Lessons, and I highly recommend it. Even if you're not a fan of his work, his life's journey from starting in a band in Michigan, touring with a religious group, doing plays and songs, to eventually booking commercials, and then eventually switching over from live action to animated, spoiler, sorry, but to hear what he went through, and also the health issues he had to go through as well, to figure out how he would deal with everything and get back to doing what he loved. I mean, that story of itself, again, Rob Paulsen, Voice Lessons. It was released in 2019. I remember listening to Rob Paulsen because he himself had a podcast called Talking Tunes. He was doing it by himself for a while, but then Nerdist Podcast, or Nerdist Industries, I should say, eventually took him on, and they put it behind a paywall. I kind of fell off at that point because, you have a family, things are kind of prioritized as far as what you're going to spend your money on. Sorry, Mr. Paulson, I hope to make it up to you one day. Like he listens. But I do recommend the book itself. It was on Audible. I figured download it, why not? I listened to it. I was at work doing a bunch of inventory stuff, and it was fun. It kept me sane. It got me through the day, and I actually am considering going back and listening to it again, just because it was that exciting to hear him tell his life story and all the different things that he had to go through, from Hollywood and dealing with family and going through and just finding out what you can go through when you least expect it. So in that regards, I'm going to say this for now. I know there's a bunch of different things that I like to talk about. Are there any audiobooks that you would like to recommend? Maybe I could listen to. I think right now I just started 1984 just because I'd never actually had a chance to listen to or read the book itself. Was it George Orwell? I hope I'm getting that right. If not, don't correct me. It's on my phone. Trust me. I was out shopping earlier tonight, and I was listening to it while I was driving, while I was walking to the store, different things. I have a bunch of different things that I listen to. The Sandman books from Neil Gaiman that were adapted into an audio drama. Been fantastic. There's 3 volumes of it so far, and I loved listening to. Neil Gaiman can read things to me all day long. I would be completely mesmerized by his voice, as well as the different voices that they picked for the different characters. James McAvoy as Dream is a fantastic pick, and I love it, even though that they have a different actor altogether doing it for the Netflix version of it. I accept them as the same thing, but different versions, different iterations of them, and they both play very well in my opinion. I'm trying to think what else. A bunch of shows we watch, streaming shows on various platforms, be it Netflix, Hulu, whatever the case is. We enjoy different things. Let me know what you guys are watching. Anything recommended that we should watch. A fun, easy watch that we do pretty much every week or when it airs is The Rookie, starring Nathan Fillion, and the offshoot of it, The Rookie Feds, only because you can take it or leave it for some of the actors and some of the scenarios, but the fact that they line them up storytelling wise, where one will lead into the other, I think they do a great job in that respect, and we're always excited to see what they come up with next. And let's face it, we're also big Firefly and Serenity fans, so seeing Nathan Fillion and your occasional cameos from past members of those old shows is always fun to see as well. We're trying to catch up on a bunch of the old DC Arrowverse superhero shows. We let those become a backlog, and we're just going through on Netflix or HBO Max, whatever the case is, and trying to figure out where we can catch up and where we can, I guess, see where it all ends up at this point. We know that Arrow itself is gone. By the time we get to it, Flash will have had its last season. Supergirl is finished up, and then Batwoman was canceled. Legends of Tomorrow ran its course. I'm trying to remember what other shows were involved in all that. The new Superman show that was on HBO Max. I don't know where it airs on TV. Again, we just wait for them to hit the streaming platforms, and we catch up from there. And there's a bunch of other stuff we're watching. It's been a while. Legends of Vox Machina. If you are not a fan of Critical Role, I am small potatoes talking about this, but if you love Dungeons and Dragons, or if you love storytelling in general, especially in the realm of fantasy and, sword and sorcery and barbarians and wizards, Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. It's a group of voice actors get together to play D&D on a weekly basis, and they've adapted the different campaigns that they've done into an animated show. I think there's like 8 episodes so far per season, 2 seasons so far. Love it. It's fantastic. It's a little raunchy at times, but that's fine, because again, these are adult people doing the show. It's not a kid's cartoon, let's put it that way. It's not something you'd watch on Saturday morning back in the day. Definitely for nighttime, for adult viewing, because some of the language and even some of the situations can get a little risque at times. But we love the show. We love all the different voice actors that are involved and included in the show. So that's fun to watch as well. Supposedly, if I remember correctly, Amazon has decided to sign the group to a bigger deal. So the other campaign that they have the Legend of Vox Machina, or Vox Machina is the one group that they did. I want to say it was like 1 or 2 campaigns. I can't remember, or if it's just one campaign and they're just spreading it out. But the other group that they did is called the Mighty Nine. And from what Jen tells me, because she's been listening to them more and more on her own, the Mighty Nine is the name of the group, and another cast of characters played by the same voice actors, But the reason it's called the Mighty Nine is because they kept rolling nines whenever they would do different uh, battles or attacks. And for a while, it just became the joke of nine, over and over again. So, again, if you're into D&D, if you're into swords and sorcery, always fun to watch those. Can't wait until the Mighty Nine comes out on Amazon Prime. But Legends of Vox Machina, especially for the battle scenes, they get really, really cool and get really, really crazy. Grog is one of our favorites. Keyleth is one of my favorite characters from Vox. Vax and Vex, the twins. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. Scanlan with his, the Bard hand. It's like this manifestation of this purple hand that can help him fly. It can help grab things out of midair. Crazy, crazy stuff. Highly recommended. And you know what? Let me know what you're listening to. Let me know what you might recommend. I'll put this up where I can. I'm sure it's been a while since I've done this. I don't even know like all the different locations and links anymore. The show's on YouTube, youtube.com/Rabblecast. Obviously, rabblecast.libsyn.com is where the show is posted primarily. Shoot us a tweet at Rabblecast. Email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. And if you want, check out the Rabblecast Facebook fan page. Even though social media is making it harder and harder to share links across platforms, like back in the day, I could share one to the other and it'd be no problem. It would just propagate all the social media. Now, if I post a link on Facebook that's outside of Facebook, they're like, nope, you can't post that here. Or if I try to post it on Twitter, now that Elon Musk is running Twitter, like they've restricted the sharing of links and information. If it's not specific to their platform, they kind of flag it and make it a little bit harder to find. So I'll put the different things up as I can go. But I figure, what the hell? I want to sit down, see what happens. I do have the means of calling out to different people, so we'll see if we can get some guests, or maybe I'll do like a little, I'll set up like a chat or something, or even, you know what? I could probably set up like a little bit of a phone line. Let's see how brave I can be. But I want to do some stuff with the show. And if you guys will have me and you guys will continue to listen, and if you guys will, share the show with people as well, we'll see what happens. Because to be honest, I sat down as soon as I hit the record button. I said to myself, I'm not gonna record this. I'm not gonna like make it a full episode. This is just gonna be testing levels, trying a few different things, and see what happens. But now here I am. I'm a good ways in for a solo episode. So you know what? Let's leave it at this for now. I had fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And we'll see what comes of it. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening, and always remember, we are the Rabblecast.